knowledge because it's going to be available digitally and be delivered to you digitally, and you can manage your own learning the way you want, at the pace at which you want, and be able to satisfy the quest of knowledge that you will have. So we in TCS have a platform called ION, which is an assessment platform. So most of the competitive exams today are run, be it the JEE or the CAT or AIEEE, whatever is there, is all run on the TCS ION assessment platform. And what it has done is it's increased the speed at which the results are managed, delivered. It's increased the speed at which candidates can look at their own performance. It's also increased the transparency multifold. Many of you don't know that the CBSE exam papers actually are scanned and delivered to teachers to correct them across the country through a digital platform. The papers are scanned, and as a student, you can now ask that I would like to see that answer paper that I wrote, and you can see the scanned sheet with the markings real time. And there is so much that there is in terms of both technology and data. And the whole ecosystem is changing. And now we can sit and say, oh, namba kaalathla, it's all good memory. We have to move towards the future and be looking at what technologies are going to, bear better results, better performance, and solve our business problems. And there's so much data, so the internet is this big thing. In the year 2000, we probably knew internet as the internet of information. By 2005, we had gone to internet version 2, which is the internet of people. Now we are talking internet version 3, which is the internet of things. So from internet of information, where you stored information, if I wanted to see a website and I want to see the railway timings, plane timing, that was fine. But now it's internet of people, because if I want to buy something, normally I would ask somebody, hey, did you buy this? How was this? But today I would just go and look at user reviews and see who is giving positive reviews. What is the weighted average review score of a certain product? And I'm going to gain intelligence based on that. And there are a lot of people in the ecosystem who are connected and who are talking to us unknowingly every second. Every second, somebody is actually tweeting this particular MMA event is getting tweeted, and somebody is actually saying, oh, this guy is saying this. And people are commenting on this. And that data is being assimilated, and we can bring enormous amount of analytics based on what that data has. And tomorrow, healthcare or manufacturing or retail or education is going to be done based on the fact that there is enormous amount of data, enormous amount of correlation capability that the human mind has, and therefore the ability for us to manage that data better and being able to solve problems. Of course, we're also going to create a lot of problems on the way. So one of the most interesting things that have happened, especially in India and across the world too, is this whole e-commerce or the m-commerce revolution, right? And I'm a big fan of the e-commerce and m-commerce. So when it first came in, I said, who will buy a sari on a website? But my wife does that. Who will buy jewelry on a website? God, my credit card knows better, but my wife does that, right? My son and daughter don't do anything other than if it is not online. They would not want to come to the store. They are not the types who would actually go to the mall. But does that mean the mall will not exist? Of course not. Even statistics say only 15% of commerce is being done through the online portals. But that may increase to 20, 25%. And brick and mortar retailers will change, will morph, will also adopt this technology. Already there are phenomenal innovations in the brick and mortar companies. For example, there is this retailer in the US where you can actually do your Christmas shopping 3 months prior, and it can be taken off the shelves so that your children don't see it and say, I want that, but it can be bought and booked and kept there and be delivered to you only during Christmas. If you want something, if it is available in a particular store in, let's say, Salem, it can be made available in Chennai in 12 hours' time, right? So they call it BOPIS. It's called Book Online and Purchased in Store or something like that, or Pick Up in Store. So brick and mortar companies have started innovating. They say we're going to have this multi-channel, omni-channel approach towards so be it banks or retailers, this whole concept of adopting technology and talking about multi-channel, omni-channel, there is too many jargons going on. The most recent one I heard is the opti-channel, which is the most optimum channel that will be used. And there is enormous amount of company, a lot of companies which are using this this behavioral aspect of the human being to attack opti-channels if required. Right? So omni-channel was because I required it in every channel. It shouldn't just be on my website. It should be on my phone. It should be on my laptop. It should be on the store, everywhere. But now we're coming up with the concept of opti-channel. And that's the beauty, right? You use technology and you're always innovating and you're trying to see how I can make this thing as easy as possible for people to use and work. I know there isn't too much time, but I will probably end with two stories, right? One is an example in TCS, so a real one, which I think my CEO also spoke at the NASSCOM event day before yesterday. So there is this banking professional in TCS. She's from California in the Valley, and Californians in the IT sector are supposed to be this yuppie, very health conscious, don't go to fast foods, go to the gym every day 3 times maybe, that kind of people. So she's in New York at a seminar, and at lunch she takes a colleague from India for lunch, and they decide to go to McDonald's. And she swipes the credit card and says, hey, it's on me. We're going to have lunch at McDonald's. And the card gets rejected by the bank, saying, invalid transaction. So she uses another card, and the other card gets rejected too. So she's very upset. There's no time. The Indian colleague decides to buy the lunch, and they go back to the seminar. And all along, she's pissed off, saying that the bank had no business to reject my transaction. At 4 o'clock, on the way back to Los Angeles, she calls the bank, and the bank says, oh, we're extremely sorry. We took all the data that we have about you. You're from California. You belong to the IT. You are this gymming person. You're a fit person. You have never been to a fast food joint in your life, and therefore you will never be able to use a fast food credit card. And this is a real story. And by the way, they also went on to say that 95% of cards stolen in the US, the first stop is a McDonald's. So this one was 100% fit in an algorithm search, and therefore they said this transaction cannot go through. And then they said, oh, if you think that we had to update your database to say that it's okay for you to eat in McDonald's, please let us know and we'll do that. So there are some downsides to people peeking and knowing a little bit about your behavior, right? The other is something which is very interesting, which I saw today. There is this very big television company. I don't know how many of you have seen this. I just got a tweet in the morning, and it's a very authentic tweet. There's a very large television company, probably the #1 television company or the #1 television brand, probably in India and also in the US. This is an ad in the US. And this television brand says, while watching our smart television, we want to warn our users that they should not be talking anything confidential while the TV is on, because we think that the television is smart enough to pick up your conversations and store them somewhere. So if you're going to say to somebody, hey, you know what, I'm having an affair with this, gone, you're dead. And I'm not making this up. If anybody's interested, I can retweet this. But this is a tweet which has come from the brand, not from somebody else. And they say, when you're watching our smart television, please do not talk anything confidential, because the television is capable of hearing and storing what you're saying. That's scary, right? And while technology is advancing at a tremendous pace, it's going to change the way our lives are going to be lived, and it's going to have a tremendous impact in every sector that we work in. I think there is also this inherent fear of what technology can do if it is not reined in, like our minds. And that fear is something which is driving enormous amount of, billions of dollars towards data privacy management, data security management, to see how we can keep the world more secure. So there is going to be a lot of technology in our lives. It's going to impact our businesses. It will change the way we live, not just in 2016, but even enormously different in 2020 and unimaginably by the year 2030. So I'll end by saying, I always tell my mom, why do you have to, she's 78 years old and she takes a lot of joy in going to the grocery store and buying the grocery. And she has to handpick the vegetables and fruits and whatever. So I said, why don't you just, go to Big Basket or Grofers and order it online? And she would say, no, I love the experience. And she would do that. And if I order something, I'll do it online. And she'll always find something, this potato is not good, the online guys are cheating you and so on. That's fine. But when the floods came, she asked me a very relevant question. Because there were no ATM machines. There is no milk in the counters. But when she went to her grocery store, the guy said, Amma, ungalku thaan paal vaangi eduthu vechirukken. Right? So she told me this story and then asked me, which online company is going to do that? Please tell me. And it's a fact that when the floods came into Chennai, in our campus in Siruseri, the food outlets, one of the well-known brands in Chennai, they have food outlets in TCS campus. And that guy realized that there are 3,000 to 5,000 people in the campus, and they all have money in the banks, but absolutely incapable of vending it. And this guy said, Parvala sir, I know you, just sign your employee number, and I will give you not just the food, but I'll also give you cash because you'll need it. So the guy was actually willing to do this till. So I think there's a very interesting lesson in all this, right? While we are doing, while we work on technology, while we work on, reinforcing our businesses and managing the change as it impacts our business, I think fundamental, there is a culture that we have grown up in. And when we marry that culture with this enormously advanced technology, I think this place is going to be an incredibly great place to live in. Not just because we're going to have the brightest minds, but we're probably going to have the emotionally very stable minds. So with this, I will end my speech. Thank you to MMA for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi Vishwanathan, for sharing your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to yet another exciting moment of this convention, the presentation of awards of the 19th MMA competition for young managers. I call upon Group Captain to brief us and also announce the winners of the awards.
Thank you, Prakash. Madras Management Association has been organizing MMA competition for young managers since the year 1996. The competition is held every year as a prelude to the MMA annual convention on the same theme of the convention and restricted to the young managers below the age of 35 years. MMA competition for young managers is a platform for young managers to exhibit their talent, their leadership skills, thereby win recognition for the potential and exceed to excel. The competition provides unique opportunities to young managers to demonstrate their knowledge, creativity, experience, professional prowess, to become leaders of tomorrow. The competition for this year was held on 6th of Feb at MMA as a prelude to MMA annual convention on the theme India 2016, Leading the Change, same as what has been done today. 60 young managers from corporate participated in the competition. The panel of judges from the corporate and academic evaluated the written as well as the oral presentations, and the team was selected the winners and the other runners and second runners up. May now request our guest of honor, Chief Guest Mr. Dinesh, Managing Director of TVS Logistics Services Limited, and our guest of honor, Mr. Ravi Vishwanathan, TCS, to please step forward and do us the honor of presenting the award to the winners of 19th MMA competition for young managers. May I? Come, Ravi. The competition, the second runners up, the team from Hindu. They win a cash prize of 10,000, represented by represented by Senthil Kant, Varsha Lal, and Akula Nikal. May I request a big round of applause. The team from Hindu, the second runners-up, represented by Senthil Kant, Varsha, and Akula. That's the team from Hindu winning the second runners-up. Thank you. Yeah. One for the Hindu newspaper, I believe. Thank you. The runners of second prize, the team from Tata Consultancy Services, represented by Vikram Gautam, Sharat, and Senthil Kumar. I think it must be a great moment. Team from Tata Consultancy Services. Thank you. The winner, first prize of 25,000 rupees, medals and certificates, everything. Again, team from the Tata Consultancy Services, represented by Meenakshi Muthukumaran, Swati Muralidharan, and Sureka Panno. Big round of applause to the team from Tata Consultancy Services for the winners of the MMA competition for young managers for the year 2016. We also have a special award that is the Best Young Manager of the Year. This is a cash prize of 10,000 rupees. This again goes to Krishnan Vijayaraghavan from Tata Consultancy Services. Big round of applause is the Best Young Manager of the Year, Krishnan Vijayaraghavan from Tata Consultancy Services. Thank you, Mr. Dinesh, Mr. Ravi. Really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Group Captain, and many congratulations to all the winners. Mr. R. Dinesh is the Managing Director with TVS Logistics Services Limited. He is the Chairman of CII Institute of Logistics Advisory Council, the Chairman of Logistics Sector Skill Council. He was awarded the Emerging Entrepreneur by CII in April 2010, and Tycon's Next Generation Entrepreneur of the Year 2014 award. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite our chief guest, Mr. R. Dinesh, to deliver the valedictory address.
Thank you, friends on the dais, friends of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. Let me add, if I can say that, warm good evening to all of you. I think as Ravi rightly pointed out, coming after, Swamiji and Geet Sethi, I think first of all is a big challenge. But let me say that to the extent possible, at least I try to live what Swamiji spoke about in the business principle of trying to manage the company. But I think it's even more interesting that MMA has chosen leading change as being the topic of this year's annual convention, because I think it's a very apt title to be looking at. And the reason for that is very simply put, in the sense that the world is in a state of flux. People used to plan for what is going to happen in the future. We used to have these 5-year plans, and sometimes I heard some Japanese companies, others thinking about 20-year plans, etc. But honestly, if you ask anyone in this room, or for that matter anyone who is in the business world, as to whether they can actually forecast what's going to happen next quarter, I seriously doubt whether they will be able to make an accurate estimate of what's going to happen. And the reality of that is simply because not only are we in a global economy which is having too many pushes and pulls, but we are also in a global economy which has put Band-Aid to solve, if I can say that, deep wounds. So they will have to keep looking at how we can actually try and resolve the structural issues which we are facing, rather than try and, as I said, keep putting Band-Aid to what has been major issues, which none or no country for that matter have been able to find permanent solutions for. But having said that, especially for those of us in India, I think it gives us a great opportunity. You would have heard the Uber CEO come to India and speak about the Jugaad attitude. But I think there is a negative Jugaad and there is a positive Jugaad. And I think the real issue is, can we harness this positive Jugaad energy of being able to face this uncertainty and create an opportunity for growth? And I think that typically the Indian mindset, and especially if you follow what Swamiji said about being in the present, is something which we can genuinely hope to achieve. And why is that? The reason for that is, if you look at the Indian context, I think achieving growth seems fairly possible. But the real challenge is achieving profitable growth. Typically, if you look at what is written about in the media today in terms of new companies starting, their valuations, etc., if you really look at whether inherently those models are going to be making, if I can say that, cash profits going forward, if those valuations are going to be justified in real time, in hardcore balance sheets and profit and loss account, is, in my mind, the real challenge or the real advantage which we in India have, that if we are going to grow, if we are going to be successful, we have to convert what is unreal into reality. And when I mean unreal, it is the lack of, let us say, cash profits or bottom line. That is what is unreal, and what is reality is making sure that that happens. So the opportunity we have, or the enigma which India is causing us to face, is that there is growth, but can we be actually profitably growing? So how do we make that happen? In my mind, it starts with basically disruption. I think Ravi was speaking to you a lot about what are the kind of disruptions which are taking place and the way in which they happen. I think the reality in this state of flux is going to be, whether you're an existing organization or you're a startup, are we having an ability to disrupt what's happening in the actual business practice? And how is that disruption going to take place? It is going to take place not just by new ideas coming in, but by new leadership or new thought process and leadership coming in. It is going to happen because there is an inspirational leadership challenging the status quo, and challenging the status quo almost on a daily basis. That's a pace of flux which we are seeing as we go along. So the reality has got to be that an inspirational leader has to challenge what is a status quo, whether it be a multi-billion-dollar company or whether it be a startup which is challenging the status quo of an existing business model. The second issue then is to make this disruption the simplest possible disruption. If the disruption is something which you need to go and explain in great detail, have diagrams, have presentations to talk about what is the disruption, then in my mind it's a business model which is not going to succeed in the long term. It can be something very small, but it has to be something very simple. When I mean very simple, it has to be something which will be understood by the consumer or by the person who is consuming the services or the products which is causing that disruption. Let us look at Uber as an example, or let us look at any change which has happened in the recent past. I don't think they have dramatically changed the model of doing business. What they have changed is the ease of doing business, is the space at which that change has happened has, I would say, created the differentiation or created the disruption. So does it then mean that you need years of effort to make a new product or a new R&D effort? No, it's just the speed at which you are able to make that access available to the user which has actually created the disruption. And the disruption is so intense now we are speaking that people will not own cars in future, but everybody will start kind of moving ahead and not really looking at buying cars, but instead just, so to say, using cars. Of course, that's a mindset change. Whether it will happen or not is a different thought process, but that may be reality as we go along in future. So this inspirational leadership is not just about an idea. It's also about making it simple and, equally importantly, being able to communicate that across whatever you are doing, whether it be with your organization or whether it be with the outside world. And that communication is possible only when there is 100% alignment of people across the organization. And when I mean alignment, it's not just in agreeing with what the other person is saying, but understanding and living it. Now I'll give you 2-3 examples of what we see. Typically, if you go to a very large company and there are certain activities which have been, say, mandated by the government, we talk about sustainability or sustainable growth. So we'll say climate change or women empowerment, and people will say, oh, my balance sheet covers that. The question is, are we actually living that in the organization? Is that something which we think of, if not every day, at least quite often, and think that we want to implement that in our business model? Do we take it as an hygiene factor which we live with, or something which we need to report in a balance sheet or report in an annual report, and therefore we will have to, so to say, implement? When we land in Delhi and breathe and say that, we have a problem with pollution, do we keep thinking as to whether our organization is adding to your carbon footprint or, substantially reducing it? So those are all the aspects of, if I can say that, inspirational leadership, which make you live or make the organization breathe the spirit of change or breathe the spirit of what the leadership believes, and people across, so to say, get aligned with it, not buy into it, but agree and breathe that spirit. The last aspect of that is really the pace at which all of this happens. I told you about the flux. I told you about what's happening with regard to the current pace of change, which I think Ravi even more beautifully encapsulated. The real issue which I think then we face as business activists or business leaders is that how can we create this sense of urgency within the organizations? And obviously competition does it, but unfortunately, and I think that's something which again we can go back to Swamiji and Swami Subharananda say that the past is something which prevents us from getting that urgency, because we say, we spoke about this 3-4 years ago, but we have not actually seen that happen at the speed at which we anticipated that. And I think Ravi rightly pointed out that the future is all about the speed with which just technological changes will take place, which will impact everyday life. So how do we then assume that the business world is not going to be impacted by all of these changes taking place? So if you really want to lead change, you have to keep not just disrupting, but destroying. And the faster you destroy every business model which you have created, the better the advantage you have of future success. And that future success is only, short-term future. We are speaking about, 1 year down the road, or maximum, I would say, 2 years down the road, which a new disruption will give you an advantage for. Let me finish by saying that this just does not apply to organizations. It also applies to each one of us. If you are seeking growth or better evolution for oneself, then that's something which you have to keep looking at as how am I going to differentiate myself? How am I going to recreate myself on a, if I can say that, monthly basis, so that I make more sense in an organization I'm involved in, I make more sense in the society in which I'm involved in, I have more of an impact in the way in which I lead my life, and at the end of it, I feel better satisfaction or better happiness, is a question which I think we'll have to address to ourselves. So this is not about leading change just in companies or leading change in business models, but leading change in oneself itself. Let me finish by talking about, this triangulation of growth. As I said, the challenge which all of us in India face is we have growth, but then is it really profitable growth? So a good lesson which I think I have learned over the last few years is to actually triangulate 3 aspects of business. One is the percentage of growth which you have. I mean, obviously, if you go to IT companies, they speak about quarter-on-quarter growth, but at least if you look at it as, basic rate of growth vis-a-vis the previous year or the previous quarter, then the next issue which then happens is it generating cash? So that's the financial metrics which you are looking at. The third aspect of it, which I think most organizations tend to talk about, but can we live it, is a real issue, is are the people in the organization growing? If you see these 3 aspects coming together and you have, let us say, 20% growth in the company, and at least 20 to 30% of the people in the organization have actually grown, both from a financial perspective as well as from an operational responsibility perspective, you will find that the growth is aligned. If there is no cash profit, or if there is no profit, and if there is no people growth, but the organization is growing, then already it is like a 3-legged stool with 2 legs having different heights. So it is not stable growth. So sustainable growth, or if I can say that leading change, would happen only when you actually have this alignment of what I would call as hardcore financial growth, hardcore people growth, and last but not the least, hardcore business growth. And that leads to society benefiting or people benefiting. So ultimately, the challenge before us is getting this triangulation right and making the reality of what we are seeing today as accepting the change of the rate of flux which is going to take place, and trying to create the disruption ourselves so that we can actually lead the change. So I am indeed honored and happy that I've been given the opportunity to be the chief guest, because I think Mr. Ramesh did not come, but happy to participate in this event and wish Madras Management Association even greater success in the years to come, and hopefully to see the new building coming up soon in Chennai will be a matter of pride for all of us. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Dinesh, for sharing your thoughts and insights. May I now request Mr. T. Shivaraman, President, Madras Management Association, to kindly present a memento to our chief guest, Mr. Dinesh. Thank you, sir, for being part of the convention. Request Mr. Shivaraman to also present a memento to Mr. Ravi Vishwanathan, our guest of honor. Thank you, sir. Group captain has a special announcement.
Thank you, Prakash. you are all aware, a convention of this magnitude cannot be organized without a solid support from the person who is heading the convention committee. This year, Srikanth is the convention committee chairman, and he has been a tremendous source of support to MMA. That made us present to you a great convention today. Not only arranging the speakers, the funds, and a lot of logistics arrangements, coordination with the knowledge partner, so many things was involved, which have been done so easy because Mr. Srikanth was behind us like a rock and always supported us. As a token of appreciation, may I request the President please present a memento on behalf of MMA to Mr. Srikanth. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for the convention chairman.
I now invite the convention chairman, Mr. Srikanth, to deliver the vote of thanks.
As they say, all good things must ultimately come to an end. And I'm sure you'll all agree with me that the entire session today has been most informative, thought-provoking, and all the distinguished speakers, without exception, have been delivered very vibrant addresses, and there's been a lot of takeaway from the entire session. It's now my privilege and honor to deliver the vote of thanks. I would start with the valedictory session. I'd like to thank Mr. Ravi Viswanathan, President, Growth Markets, Head Operations, TCS, for accepting our invitation at a short notice and deliver the keynote address. We enjoyed your speech today. I'd like to thank Mr. Dinesh for coming here, and we enjoyed listening to you today, too. In the inaugural session, I'd like to thank Mr. S. Nagarajan, Managing Director, Mother Dairy, for delivering a very inspirational speech. So too was Dr. R. Sitaraman, CEO,